The story begins with a dwarf named Oscar who does not spare anyone from his maid to his neighbor in his quest to satisfy his fide and gets them pregnant. The story is filled with Oscar's exploits. So let's see what else Oscar does. The movie is called The Tin Drum. It was released in 1979. At the beginning of the story, we see a woman named Anna walking in her fields. All of a sudden, a gentleman by the name of Joseph comes rushing in, leaving for Anna's assistance to elude the law enforcement. Anna then conceals him within her cavern. However, Joseph seizes the chance to create chaos with Anna inside the cavern. Once the authorities depart, Joseph steps out, and the pair commence a friendship. They eventually begin cohabiting, yet one day law enforcement apprehends him. Prior to his apprehension, he leaps into the water and vanishes. Many rumors spread about Joseph. Some say he drowned and died in the water, while others claim he escaped to America and became a wealthy businessman living in luxury. Meanwhile, we see Anna and her daughter Agnes, who are making their living by selling goods in the market. Agnes was in love with her cousin Lan, who worked at a Polish post office. Moreover, Anna harbored feelings for Alfred, a German culinary expert. From their secret meetings, a boy christened Oscar is brought into the world. Oscar engages in relentless weeping subsequent to his birth and shows no signs of stopping. Upon hearing from his mother that he will receive a tin drum when he reaches the age of 3, he ceases his crying. On the occasion of his 3rd anniversary, as Oscar witnesses adults imbibing and canines frolicking, he resolves to never age. To fulfill this resolve, he jumps off the stairs. From then on, Oscar remains forever 3 years old. He always keeps his drum with him, and whenever someone tries to take his broken drum, he screams so loudly that he shatters glass with his voice. Time slowly passes by. Now Oscar is 6 years old. Oscar was neither growing up nor was he detaching himself from his broken drum, and whenever someone tried to snatch it from him, he would shatter glass with his voice. Seeing Oscar's power, all the doctors were amazed, but his mom and his family wanted to know why Oscar wasn't growing up. We see that every Thursday, Agnes would go into the city with Oscar and leave him at a shop. Later, she'd visit Jane's home for deep conversations. Eventually, Oscar uncovers secrets about his mother's romantic encounters. As time passes, Oscar, now 12, attends a circus with his family. There, Oscar's parents begin to wonder if their son might be a dwarf. After the show, a dwarf named Deborah spots Oscar's gifts and offers him a role in his troupe. Just then, Oscar's parents intercept and whisk him away. Soon after, it's revealed the shopkeeper in whose care Oscar's mother often left him has quietly grown fond of Agnes. He proposes that she and Oscar join him in London, yet Agnes declines and departs. Later, Agnes discovers her pregnancy with Jane's child. The revelation distresses Agnes. Overwhelmed, she consumes an unusual quantity of fish, which leads to food poisoning and her untimely demise. Alfred, her spouse, remains indifferent to the baby's paternity, solely wishing for Agnes's contentment, a state she hadn't known since Oscar's arrival. In the ensuing years, Oscar yearns to repair his damaged drum. All these events unfolded during a period when Germany was intensifying its efforts to subjugate Poland through military aggression. The epicenter of this conflict was the besieged post office. Her husband Alfred, a kind and selfless man, didn't care whose child was in Agnes's belly. All he wanted was to see Agnes happy and content. However, despite the birth of Oscar, Agnes never found true happiness. Struggling with inner turmoil, she sought solace in overeating macaroni, a habit that tragically resulted in food poisoning and ultimately claimed her life. Years later, we find Oscar laboring to mend his broken violin, a poignant metaphor for his shattered family life. Meanwhile, amidst their personal struggles, they were getting ready to launch an offensive against the Germans when, unexpectedly, the Germans struck first. Numerous individuals lost their lives in this aggression, one of them being a person named Jane. Oscar miraculously endures the assault and escapes the area. A few days subsequent to that, we witness a girl of 16 years, known as Maria, whom he recruits to assist in his store. Maria was tasked with managing the store and taking care of Oscar. Gradually, Oscar begins to fall in love with Maria. He was the same age as Maria, but she didn't believe it and still thought of him as a child. One night, when Alfred went out of town on some work, Oscar went to Maria's son, crept into his blanket like a mouse and started to snuggle up. Maria also enjoyed it. So she does not stop Oscar. Gradually, Oscar gets even closer to her, but suddenly one day he discovers that Maria is having an affair with Alfred and that Maria truly loved Alfred. However, Alfred was just using her. Maria was very saddened by this and began to cry. Oscar takes this opportunity to come to her aid and tries to comfort her, but Maria gets very angry and calling Oscar a dwarf, she kicks him in the backside. A few months later, we find out that Maria is pregnant with Alfred's child and Oscar wants to kill the baby, but Maria does not allow it. A few days later, Maria gives birth to a boy. Everyone is very happy to have the child. But Oscar was not happy at all seeing all this because he felt as if the child was his own. On the other hand, we see Oscar's friend Barbara, who was working in a high-ranking position in the Nazi army during World War II. Then one day he invites Oscar to join his team. They were going to perform in Paris. Oscar joins them and showcases his talent to everyone. Working with them, he falls in love with a girl from his team named Roswitha. Many days passed like this. Now Oscar was very happy with his friends, living his life on his own terms, able to do what he wanted, whenever he wanted. One day, suddenly, the Americans attack. Oscar's girlfriend is killed in the assault. After the tragedy, Oscar returns home. Back home, he gifts Maria's 3-year-old son a drum, just like the one he received at that age. However, Maria is not pleased with Oscar's return, but Alfred, his father, was very happy to see his son. Alfred hides his son from those who wanted to take Oscar to the hospital for treatment, because Alfred never thought Oscar was different from ordinary people. Gradually, the situation in the city starts to deteriorate. Then, out of fear, Alfred hides his son Oscar and his neighbor Lena in the basement. Along with this, Alfred had to hide his identity as a Nazi. One day, Russian soldiers suddenly enter their house and force themselves on Lena in front of Alfred. Meanwhile, to help Alfred conceal his Nazi identity, Oscar gives him a symbol with Nazi affiliations. Alfred attempts to remove it, but it gets caught in his throat, leading to his death there. The next morning, a man named Maris comes to Alfred's store and becomes a new owner, taking the shop under his control and dealing with Alfred's taxes. Owing to his recent personal losses, he empathized deeply with the sting of grief. After Alfred's departure from this world, Oscar recognized he was utterly alone. He chose to mature from then on. Honoring his commitment, Oscar lays his drum to rest next to Alfred's memory. However, abruptly a hurled stone strikes Oscar, knocking him out cold. There, a man informs that Oscar has begun to grow up. In the movie's final scene, we see that everyone except Anna is leaving the town, where Oscar realizes that he has lost his shouting strength, and Anna stays where the story began. This is where the movie ends.